that I pray that this will be a very special summer. I want to drop that challenge to you, Grace, that we will see some incredible events occur this summer. We will see God move in lives, but we will also see that as we are a church that's believing God, not just to say, well, it's great, it can happen, something might occur, but to take the next step. And the next step is to really reach out to those who are around us. People get into the path of the gospel when we extend an invitation and we allow God to do what God does. And that's change our heart, make a home, as Christian had shared, and give us the opportunity to see life change. Let me just check real quick, give you a quick example of that. How many are here because someone invited you? If you are, raise your hand, please. How many are here? Raise high. Because someone invited you. Amen. Amen. I want you to know that there are many more who should be here. There are many more who could be here. And there are many more who we want to see come and have God impact their lives. And so, for each of us, those that we come in interacting with or interactions with through the week, each of us has about 12 to 24 people on our social network. Let's make it a point to invite someone this summer. There are people we will meet as we go through our day, as we go through our week. Let's make it a point to extend an invitation. And let's see what God will do. But we must believe Him and then act on it. So we're really glad that you're here. And we are blessed by, again, your presence and forward to what God is going to be doing this summer. We also have some pictures, just before we get started, Louis. We have some pictures from an outreach that we have here at Grace. We've been moving into one of the local schools, Kingswood Elementary. And for the last 3 years, the men have been faithful to go and to work with young boys. These are usually kids that are indicated, tagged as being more so at risk. And so we have had the opportunity to model for these young men, or young boys, what it means to be men of virtue, character. And so our men have been faithful to go for 3 years. If the pictures aren't up, then we have them scrolling in the foyer, and you can see them there. But I really wanted to highlight just the faithfulness our men have undertaken. There are more opportunities for that, and I can tell you, you make the greatest impact when you get to kids earlier than later. And so it's been wonderful to see and hear some of the testimonials about how some kids have come in and not really engaged, not been able to talk with these men, but over time, and having them be consistent to come monthly, they have seen a great impact in the lives of these kids. And so this is their graduation, the graduation speaker, and just the event that took place. And each, starting this year, I don't know if it's been the last few years, but now they are starting to identify them and to make it a point that they get a certificate. Our children's ministry gave them a bag of candy and goodies, and just to mark the event and to see them take that step of growth, and it's just been a blessing. That's the principal that's with them, Sherry Schleicher, and she will be joining us August 4th, and she comes over just to tell us thank you, give us an update of what's been taking place. But I want to highlight these ministries, these outreach, these events, because they are us. And each part of us, depending on where we are and how we're functioning, is making an impact for the glory of God. And this is especially gratifying to me because I said, again, getting the kids at an early age in our school system, we were invited in. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for us to model what it means to be a godly man, what it means to be a man of character. And so that will start back up next year. If you have the opportunity, we want you to pay attention to that, and we want to see that take place. I'm just going to throw this out as well. At the graduation, Principal Schleicher, I asked her, I said, well, what would you have for us? Is there something that you have a need that we can possibly meet? And we've been trying to, again, walk with the two schools that are closest to us, Northwoods Elementary as well as Kingswood, and just say, how can we provide a need? How can we have an impact in your world? And so the next thing she said is, we would love to see this program for young girls. And so I just mentioned that. If you are interested, it would take a commitment. It would have to be a team effort, have to be a group. But if you are interested, I want to just note that you would see me. And I told her I would put it out there and we'll see what happens. But that is the order. Now we're at the boys. Now we want to move on to see the girls have their lives impacted as well. And I want to thank the men who have been faithful to that. I believe, I don't see all of them here. Robert, I saw you come in. Okay, amen. And Eric and John is out of town, and some of the others as well. We want to thank you for that. And as well, I want to note that we, sometimes we overlook prayer. Sometimes we overlook God's answer to prayer. Sometimes we overlook what God is doing in our midst. That's how we see Him. And this morning we have a personal representation of that. So I'm asking my brother, he came up a few minutes ago and just noted his presence. And so, Tony Mitchell. Tony, if you'll stand, please. Dr. Tony Mitchell. Woo! And Tony has been in a battle. And we are glad that you're here. You know his dear wife well, Carolyn Mitchell. Carolyn, you stand. We are glad to see you. So come on now. Come on now. Carolyn has set this up today, our husband. And she is, one of our deaconesses. She's been faithful to just note that, and so it has been a battle, and we're glad you're here, brother. We're praying for you. This morning, Grace, I want to take us into God's Word. Again, it is great to have you here as we study His Word, and so I want to start off by noting a event that happened yesterday. I noticed it this morning. I read about it yesterday, but I saw it this morning, and that was that the Preakness had just been run, a horse race, and in that horse race there was one horse, Bought Experience, I believe the name of it was, who lost his rider right from the very beginning. Even before he got out of the chute, or just as they got out of the chute, the rider fell off. But the horse kept running. You should have seen it. He was well trained. That's a good horse. He ran the whole race, all the way around the track, and at one point it looked like he was going to be in competition, and made it all the way as he faded off to the back, but made it all the way to the finish line. The rider sat the whole thing out, watching, looking at what was going on. You know, the challenge that happens so often is that we are like that. We run a solo race. Unfortunately, Bought Experience, although he ran the whole thing, his end, his goal, his finish time, his fact that he finished the race was not qualified, was not counted. Had to have a rider. But for many of us, we think that we can live our lives, especially our spiritual lives, without a rider. And so we run this race just mano a mano, just me and God, one-on-one. All I need is Him and no one else. Can I tell you, you are not experiencing the fulfilled Christian life if you're trying to do this one-on-one with God. It was never His intent for you to not have other people be a part of your world. It was never His intent for you to not have someone who is a part of the process walking with you. And He says, I keep my limits small. Can I tell you, some people keep it so small that they don't come to church. They don't want multiple people being a part of their world. You can call on them. You can check on them. And they'll be offended that you would do so. Why? Because it's me. I can do it myself. I don't need anyone else. Again, let me tell you, you are disqualifying yourself from experiencing the fullness of what the Christian life was intended to be, because you have pushed an intent that God never wanted you to have. You're trying to do it all by yourself. You're trying to do it not letting somebody else get in your world. You're trying to do it not having people cramp your style, poke their interest into your business. You're trying to do it without anyone's assistance, even one's presence. Can I tell you, that is not the way God intended for us to live our lives. Each one of us needs community. Each one of us needs others around us who will encourage us, who will pick us up. How can two walk together unless they be agreed? And a cord of many strands is stronger. And so, if you're here today and you have a hard time letting someone into your world, I got you. I understand. I can even go to the point of saying, I totally realize that temptation comes after probably much experience of being challenged and having endured many experiences where people may not come alongside and been as they should have been. Because I know for some of us, we're here, we've hurt or have been hurt. Because someone we let in close, some group we let be a part of our world, some church that we were a part of, some organization, some group did not fulfill what they should have. And in the process may have hurt us. I know that occurs even now. There are some of us who may be here this morning, and there are people on the other side of the room you can't speak with. There may be people closer to you that you know the time, the place, and the specifics of the incident of what they said or what they did that hurt you. How they said those words, never thinking, even in a smile, even with a laugh afterwards, that pierced deep. That gave you a gash. And now you just kind of keep your distance from them. Can I tell you that there are others in the midst of just thinking, hey, this is just me being nice, this is just me creating a bridge and starting a circumstance of interaction, thinking that they are doing something that you're enjoying, and all the time you're tightening up because you just want it to be over. I know there are some of us here today who are hurting. But I also know there are some of us here who hurt. There are some of us here who are quite abrasive. There are some of us here who do those kind of things, and no matter what anybody else said, we just kind of brush it off and we say, well, you know, they shouldn't be so sensitive. If they can't handle it, they shouldn't be in the fire. If they can't take what it means to have a little Christian fellowship, a little fun, a little poking here and there, then they shouldn't come to church. Can I tell you that we all are a little like that? And there are times, no matter how sweet, no matter how abrasive, no matter how much we try, no matter how much we have no clue as to what we're doing, we all hurt other people. Many times we say things we shouldn't say. Many times in our interactions, we cause a gash, we cause a wound, we have hurt someone. Sometimes it happens and we have no clue, we just keep walking. And so I want to talk to us today. I want to talk to all of that. I want to talk to the fact that every single one of us, I don't care how sweet you think you are, I don't care how much you try, I don't care how nice people tell you you are, we all hurt other people. And so, when we spoke last time about murder mouth and the fact that we all inflict wounds on others, that we could be paralyzed by that. We could be at a point where relationships are incapable of ever occurring because this has occurred. But the Bible has an answer for that. It tells us that we are to be instead those who will seek to create reconciliation when that hurt is taking place. Jesus talking about that laid it out quite well. I want to turn your attention to Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 5, I want to just review the words that he said last week, or 2 weeks ago. And beginning in verse 21. He says, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not commit murder, and whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court. But I say to you, that everyone who is guilty, that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court. And whoever shall say to his brother, Raka, which means numbskull, empty-headed, you shall be guilty enough to go into, Raka shall be guilty enough to go to the Supreme Court. And whoever shall say, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. And so Jesus is talking about a contempt that sometimes we can have towards somebody else. Sometimes we can say things out of anger. It's built up and we got to the point where we're just so sick and tired that we just spew it. He says, yes, that does occur. But I'll tell you, none of us should become insensitive to the part that it does occur. And we should look to always make sure that we make it right. And so he says, yes, this does happen. It happens for all of us. There are times where we will fail. There are times where we will say things. There are times where we will put somebody down. There are times we'll let it build up. But you cannot let it stay there. You've got to clean it up. And so today, that's where we're going to focus on. Jesus then gives 2 examples. He's still looking at the 6th commandment. Thou shalt not murder. And he's saying if you take it as an act that you performed or not performed, that doesn't make you, again, illegitimate to walk with him, but it also doesn't excuse you because you've not done the physical act. He says we can commit murder with our mouths. But there's a way to clean it up. And so he gives 2 examples of that. The first one is in the worship setting. The second one is a very wise saying that can be applied all through life. So I turn your attention to Matthew chapter 5 in the next verses that follow. Verses 23 and 24 gives us the worship setting. Verses 25 and 26 give us wisdom for every day. Let's look at verses 23 and 24. It says, if therefore you have, in presenting your offering at the altar, and then remember that your brother has something against you. Let me stop there. Jesus says, okay, this happens. There are times when we let it get built up. We get that animosity. We spew on somebody else. We sharply cut somebody else. We murder somebody else and putting them down. Maybe it's a pattern in our life. That if we are followers of Jesus, that when we come to the altar to worship God, If God whispers in our ear that we have done or somebody else because of us had something against us, we have done something to hurt them, he says, stop what you're doing, right in the middle of what you're doing. In that moment when you're worshiping God here and you are singing the praises of Jesus, there is no other but you, God. In the midst of that, he says, yeah, but you need to remember, you heard such and such. You need to stop. You need to stop right then. You need to say, hey, hold my spot. I'll be right back. You need to walk out in the middle of that song. You need to go out there for you. You need to take your phone, because we can do that today. And you can call that person and say, look, I'm very, very sorry. The Lord has convicted me. What I said, I was wrong in saying it. I should have never called you a name. I should have never put you down. I should have never spoken to you in anger. If you're in the midst of what's going on and you're about to give your offering, about to drop it in the box, and you realize, wait a minute, there is something that I have not brought together with a brother or a sister. You are to stop right there, go out and make that call. Go out and get a hold of that person and make sure that the connection is reunited. Reconciliation takes place. If you're in the middle of listening to a sermon and the Lord taps you on the shoulder, you are to, again, do the same thing. Get up and get out and make it right. Why? Because God says, if you're not right with your brother or sister, then you're not right with me. If you're not right with your brother or sister, if there's something you knowingly have done that has caused friction, that word that you have done something, that's a very general term. That's a term that's talking about something small or something big. It's saying if there's anything between you and a brother and the Lord brings it to your attention, deal with it. Deal with it. Not put it off till later, not write yourself a note. Handle it immediately. Now, the reason that is significant is because it gives us another idea of the reason why we gather together to worship. It gives us an idea that worship is not just about you. It's not just about what you sing, how you sing. It's not just about your ability to listen and take notes and don't bother me. I don't care about anybody else. I just want to come into Sunday service. I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be spoken to. I don't want to be asked to teach. I don't want to be asked to serve. I don't want to be asked to give. I just want to come in and get and then leave. Can I tell you it's not biblical? The very context here says, in the midst of being in the unity, in the midst of being the unified community, God speaks to us. We come together to get spurred on to deeper growth, to get encouraged to walk before God as a body. And so if you're coming and this is just like an individual drop-in moment, but you're not connecting and growing through that connection, you're losing out on what church is all about. Church is a dynamic group that is focused on growing together in serving Christ. It's a group where you're going to receive what you need. Somebody's going to encourage you. Somebody's going to say, hey, I've been through that. I can help you with that. Or they're going to say, God will take you through. I had that challenge. I will pray for you. And that is what encourages us to walk with God. But can I also tell you, not only is there somebody to pray for you, not just somebody to stand with you, but there's going to be somebody there sometimes that's going to hurt you. You say, yeah, Pastor, that's the part I don't want. But can I tell you that's part of being family? That's part of having people at a different level of their walk than other people. That's part of having people who are super sensitive with people who are super abrasive. And God puts us together and we are to work to the middle where we are more like Jesus than we were what we were when we came in. And the process is going to cause some bumps. It is going to cause some bruises. But you can't give up on it. Because if you give up on it, you lose out on what he's trying to do, how he's trying to bring us all together, how the word resonates and gets amplified as it bounces from life to life and moves, and we all get on the same page, and we all hear it so much better because I can see it. I can touch it. I can feel it because I see it in your life and I want it in my life. And I see it in somebody else's life, their need, and I want to give it to them because it's been in my life. We come together to experience Jesus. And when you give up on church, you lose that unified community dynamic to it. Back in the day when you used to go out to the club, you used to go to a party, you don't go to a single party. Just you by yourself. That's not a party. That's just a listen time. That's just, I got my groove on. I'm cleaning the house and doing something. When you go to a party, you go because you want the amplification of the moment. You want the music to just be grooving. Everybody's on the same beat and they're moving and they're going in the same direction. And everybody is feeling it. As you're feeling it, it makes you feel better. And before long, whatever brought you was a problem before you came in, you're starting to groove with it. And before long, the music sounds sweeter. As you look over, you see somebody else having the same feeling you're having, and it means something to be in a setting where everybody is on the same page, enjoying the same tunes, and just enjoying themselves. That's what church is like. That's what church is like. Church is not us dancing and moving around at times. Sometimes it's just sitting there nodding, saying amen, and somebody echoes Santo, Santo, Santo over there, and somebody else is saying Gloria a Dios, and somebody else is saying Hallelujah, praise the Lord. It is people, again, getting God's word and us coming together. It's us worshiping. It's us unifying. It's us letting down our guards long enough to let somebody in so that we can learn from them and they can learn from us, and before long we leave here on the same page. Amen. Can I tell you, God is so committed to that he will tap you on the shoulder in the middle of worship and tell you, stop it, go take care of it. He will stop you in the middle of hearing the word and tell you, stop, go take care of it. How do I know? Read verse 25. Verse 24. It says, leave your offering there after the Lord has spoken to you before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and present your offering. First get it right. First make up for the problem. First bring back unity. Reconcile before you continue worshiping, before you continue listening, before you continue with amen, before you continue giving. Then when that occurs, come back. He said, wait a minute. That should bother you like it bothers me. Because I think, wait a minute, isn't the worship of God above everything else? Everything else has to be pushed aside. If I'm worshiping the Lord, shouldn't my relationship with somebody else not matter before my worship of Him? Shouldn't it be more important that I'm connecting with God deeply in prayer, or I'm connecting with God in worship, or I'm connecting with God and listening to the Word, that's primary? And all these earthly things are secondary or tertiary? No. Scripture says that is primary because that is the context in which God grows us. Unity is the context by which we are to walk together. Again, if you run the race and you're doing great as a Christian, but you can't get along with anybody else, it's not what Christianity is all about. He has a context like fish live in water, so we are to live in unity, in community, growing together, bringing in new people, understanding what it's all about. You know, it blessed my heart today that we can't use the state credit union. It blessed my heart today. Why? Because it forces us to get along. It forces some of us to park where we didn't park before. It forces some of us to park in the back of the building. It forces some of us, and some of us did, to leave the sanctuary and go out and move our cars for someone else. Why? Because there is incredible dynamic of unity and community that occurs when we give so that we might be brought together. Let me show you that context. I'm going to give you two passages this morning. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 27 to 30. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 27 to 30. The context is very familiar to us. If you've been around church, you've been around grace for a while, you know that. The context is the Lord's Supper, communion. And this passage is usually read. But do you know the background behind it? It's a negative event that leads to a positive instruction. The negative event was that in the early church, there were masters and there were slaves. Both of them believers, followers of Christ. If you came to know Jesus, that didn't make that all of a sudden you're going to be released from your responsibility, the tier of society you were in as a slave. And so you had to do your labor before you came in and worked and honored and worshiped God. And so the masters didn't have as much to do. There was a time period where what they had before the communion was a love feast, a love meal. They would come together and love on one another, unify themselves. You know, around chicken dinners, barbecue pork. No, it's her Jewish. They could have done that. But around chicken meals and having a good meal and some hush puppies on the side and all of those good stuff, they would have that. And so they'd be talking about the love of Jesus and how God has brought them together as one. But after the meal was over, then the slave came in at front field. And when they came in, having smelt the food, having thought about what they were about to get, they got into the meeting area and there was no more food. The ones who were rich didn't care about the ones who were poor. They could have pushed it back for later. The ones who were poor didn't care that they had to work. They were done wrong because this is a love feast and you do it without us. And so immediately there started to be friction within the church. And so after that, they would then have communion, the Lord's table. They would then come together and break the bread, showing that they were now part of the body of Christ, each one of them. And drink of his blood, showing that his blood had made them one. And many of them didn't feel like that. The rich didn't consider their poor brothers and sisters a part of who they were. And the poor, sure enough, didn't get that experience. And so Paul writes this. He says, check yourself before you come to the Lord's table. Why? Because this is what could happen. Verse 27. He says, therefore, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord and in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But let a man examine himself. And so let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks and eats and drinks the judgment to himself, if he does not judge the body rightly. For this reason, many among you are weak and are sick, and a number are asleep. In other words, they died. Wait a minute. You mean that examination that we are supposed to do is based upon unity? Yes, it is. So often when we come to communion, we think about what it means, all the wrongs we've done, making sure we've committed and confessed every sin, making sure that if we've done something wrong, we can think of it right then and say, Lord, forgive me, but now make it right so I can eat of the bread and drink of the wine. He's saying, no. It's not about every sin. It's about the sin of unity. This unity. That you would know that you've done something wrong, to break the unity that should take place, and it's exemplified as you break bread and as you drink the fruit of the vine. And if you miss that, then you're setting yourself up for judgment. Some of you are sick. Some of you are dying. Some of you are realizing that God is not pleased with you. So what it means is that when we have the Lord's table, it means that there are people on this side, maybe to come all the way on this side, but make sure they get it right. Go into a brother and say, I did you wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that about you. I know that we've had a little something going on, and I can tell there's something there. I want to get it right because I'm about to take the Lord's communion. I'm about to take the Lord's meal, and I want to make sure that as he looks on us, that I'm in a right relationship with you. Because he's all about unity. And somebody else will turn to their husband, hey, I tell you got under my skin this morning. Ooh, you did. And I'm about to take communion. I ain't had the Lord take me out like that. You better realize that you better not do that again. And I want to make it right with you. I want to get it okay. Why? Because God is about unity. Unity in community. And when we are living, he gave this to let us understand and realize none of us deserve this grace. None of us should be a part of his family. And every time we take that meal, it should be a time of thanksgiving, but it should be a time of humbling ourselves to remember. You did me wrong, but I can make it right. Because I shouldn't have received grace. And therefore I can extend grace to you. It keeps us together so that we might function and flow in the best way possible. Do you know cells operate best when they are closest together? They operate best when they are in a range where they can communicate life beyond itself to the other cell, to the other tissue around it. Can I tell you, we're the same way? And when this unity occurs in the body, we are in trouble. We are hurting. And at that point, God says, I will not have it. Come back together. Let me give you the second one. The second one given is 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7. In 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7, it does relate to the marriage relationship. After Peter talks about how a wife is to be in the Christian family, about how it's not always about the outward adornment, it's about the internal truth and reality of her character and her life, he then turns his attention to the husband. He does it in verse 7. And he says, you husbands likewise live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker vessel, since she is a fellow heir of you in the grace of life. What he says is this. He says, I want you to realize that women are in a position in a Christian marriage that makes them a weaker vessel. Why? Because I've commanded them, God has commanded them, Christ has commanded them to be submitted to their husbands. Husbands, that doesn't mean you do what you need to do what you want to do, not caring about your wife, doing your own thing because, I'm the man of the house. No, it says you are to die to self and live so that your wife will be blessed. That is being the weaker vessel, when you got to be in the passenger seat and let that man drive. When you got to trust that he's going to follow the Lord and put your best interest as a part of his interest. But then Peter says this, in case he doesn't get it, he needs to check himself. Why? Because if you look at verse 7 at the very end, it says this, so that your prayers may not be hindered. In other words, husbands, you think you're the center of the world? She is there to live for you. You don't need to keep her interest primary. You're not going to die to self so you can honor her and take care of her and bless her. Then I will not listen to you. You won't listen to her? I won't listen to you. You're not going to put her interest primary? I'm not going to put your interest primary. You could as well keep your prayers all the way to say, come on now, preach it, Pastor. Preach it. Come on now, yes. It ain't saying a word when I said submission. You heard that, right? Now they're like, come on now, yes. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, he said you could as well shut your mouth, husband, if you will not put your wife first. Amen. Because I'm not going to listen to it. Why? Because there should be unity in that marriage. And it occurs when you die to self for her. But if you won't die, then I'm not going to let you live on my account. And so the reality is God always looks at the dynamic of what it means when Christians are living in unity. He is longing. In Psalm 133, I believe it says there, it is a blessing when brothers live together in unity. When a family is as they should be. You look at Ephesians chapter 4, beginning of verse 4. It says there is one baptism, one Lord, one... it just goes down the line. Unity again. And if you overlook unity, then what happens is you set yourself up to try to live a solo life, running that race by yourself, and you disqualify enjoying the fullness of what God has for you because you will not allow yourself to be touched, to be engaged with, to be blessed. And so Jesus said, murder will occur. Murder by mouth will occur. But you cannot let it kill the unity that's vital for us living out what I have for you. But there's another part he does. It's very interesting. He does that example, and then all of a sudden he switches and he does something very, very wisdom-like. Back to the book of Proverbs. He gives us the setting in the church. He says, in the church you are to... Now please note, I'm going to say one more thing. If you're about to give your offering and the Lord speaks to you, go take care of it. We'll come back and give your offering. You know what he said there, right? I just got to say that. I am a pastor. I just can't overlook that point. He says, take care of it and come back. Take care of it and worship. Take care of it and continue to worship. Take care of it and continue under the word. Take care of it and continue praying. Take care of it and come back in and re-engage. You've done what you need to do. Now I'll step in. The challenge that happens so often is that many times God is speaking to us, but we push it off. And so I've heard of stories of people who said that I've had something against you, or I've had something against this person for 9 years. I know you've never, ever liked me. I know that you've had stuff against me. I know that this has just been there. And I've kept it, and I've tried to work it through, just me and God. But all the time, you're dying on the vine. Because you wouldn't do what God says. He says, if somebody offends you, go to them. If they don't listen, bring somebody else. But he also says on the other side, for those of us who do offend, which is all of us, if the Lord taps you on the shoulder, go to that person. Don't push your Christianity. Don't push your worship. Don't push your prayer. Don't push anything else you want to do. Before that, get it right. Get it right. Reconcile. Keep life flowing. Some of us are thinking of somebody who comes to mind right now, and maybe you need to make a call. Please do. Maybe you're going to Go by their home right after, please. Because the flow of what God wants to do in your life may have been hindered because you will not allow him to have his way. You will not allow him. But then he gives us something very worldwide, very wise, very wisdom-based. And it's given in Matthew, back in Matthew chapter 5, in verse 25 and 26. He gives this example. He says, make friends. The only time this appears in the whole Bible, this word in the Greek. Make friends quickly with your opponent at law while you are with him on the way, in order that your opponent may not deliver you to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and the officer then throw you into prison. Truly I say to you, you shall not come out of there until you have paid every last cent. Well, why does he attach that to worship? You see, the Bible is always looking to take us from the familiar to the spiritual, and from the spiritual to back it up with the familiar. What he's saying is this. This is probably a debt situation. They're owing somebody else money. And the person who has that money owed to them finally decides enough. Enough. I've had calls put through. I've had letters sent. I've had text, emails sent. It is time for this person to pay up. They're going to have to pay for the fact they have not paid back money. So they go and they get them. They both go to court. And when they're on their way to court, Jesus says, if you are wise, what you'll do is you cut a deal real quick. You make out a payment plan. Write it on the napkin, write it on your hand, get the person aside, but you're going to take care of it. Why? Because if you ever get into court, you know as well as I do, you won't get out until you pay your last cent. Jesus says, we'll do that. That's a wise way to act. Now, my family knows all this stuff. They know all the lingo because they are some court-watching people. I'm serious. I come into the home and they're watching divorce court. They're watching people's court. They're watching, I don't know, insanity court. You know, you go from judge now to judge Judy, to judge parole. You just keep that. And I sit there and I'm like, I can't get into this. I can't even get it. Most of these people are making bad choices. All they had to do was pay the $500, pay the $100. Why would you bring him on TV? Why would you take her syndicated? Why would you make this a national issue? Just pay the money. You're going to take the time to take your little squabble and make it public? How does that help your relationship after? How does mom talk to daughter after you've done that on TV? And so I come through and I'm like, really? You guys are going to watch this? Oh, yes, this is great. Jesus is saying, look, I ain't about family court. Now, if you're a family court person or a divorce court person or any of those court shows, don't talk to me after. This is okay. You enjoy yourself. But don't let me ever see you on TV. Please. Somebody, you owe somebody $100. Pay the person $100. Pay up. Don't go on TV for that. That's what Jesus is saying. He said, why would you put yourself through all of that when all you had to do was work out a payment plan? All you had to do was just set it up. He's saying if that's all that it takes, how much so would it be just to make it right with somebody you're not getting along? And he's saying we do that in the private world, we do that in the legal world, we do that in the financial world. Why wouldn't we do that in the spiritual? Why would we let that bill grow? Why would we let the animosity, the fruit of bitterness grow? Why would we let the problem that could just blow up? Why would we let all of that take place when all we had to do was handle it? Just handle it. But you know, the challenge that comes so often is that we will step out in the financial world, even for the most uncomfortable thing, if we know in the end we're going to benefit from it. But when it comes to the spiritual, we put it off and we fight. You know, one of the things I realized, the thought came to me just yesterday, I was sharing this with Carolyn, I said, do you realize that we spend a lot of money in this country for security devices? We have monitoring for every window, every door. We have doorbell monitoring. You can see the person on your phone, on your computer. We pay money out monthly. If you were up north, you have bars on your windows. You have bars on your doors. Almost bars on your cars. But up north, that's how they do it. You're going to invest for your security, right? But You will do something absolutely different when you're ready to sell your home. You will allow strangers to come in your home with your permission. Do not be there. You will have them walk all up and through your home, into your closets, into your bathroom, into every place they want to. You will not only let them in, you'll leave a key on the door for them. People you don't know, you don't get to take names, you don't know what they look like, you don't know what's going on, but you will pay all that money and turn it off so they can walk through that house and do whatever they need. Look it over and then leave again. Why? Because your hope is that you'll make more money when you give up more of your rights. We'll do things for money we would not do in any other situation. Jesus said it's the same thing spiritually. It may not be money-based, but you know as well, king who has 1,000 heads of cattle on a hill is the one who will provide for you. But if you really trusted him, you would take him at his word. When somebody is brought to your mind, you will deal with it right away. Because you do that for this financial. You do that for this financial. Now I know for some of you, no matter how much you go through the sermon, no matter how much you've heard, no matter how much you read scripture, you still won't do it. Can I tell you, please, please, as my dear sister said today, drink the cup. Drink the cup. Just finally take out it. Just finally step out and say, okay, Lord, don't feel good, don't want to do it, but I'm going to drink the cup. I'm going to go. I'm going to work it out. I'm not even been the one who did all the wrong, but you're telling me now I need to go. And therefore I will be obedient. I'll drink it all. Because I'd rather be in a right relationship with you than a right relationship with anybody else. And I don't need it to be financial for me to use. I need it to be your will. So if you're here today, God has spoken to you, or you know of issues, maybe you're the abrasive one. Maybe you're Christ, or the Christian sandpaper in this body. I hope you understand you shouldn't be. And the sensitivity, I pray that if somebody comes to you, you will not scratch them back. You will just let them speak. And in some ways, I pray that there will be a greater sensitivity for all of us. Because we all offend at some time and in some way. And that we would allow God to speak to us so that we might be unified. Amen? Amen. We're grateful. Heavenly Father, I bless you and I thank you so much for your grace today. Thank you for the truthfulness of your word. And we know, Lord, it's your word.